Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, the Witcher-themed card game, and today what we're going to do is we are going to check out the Arena mode, which is, full disclosure, a mode that does normally require that you pay a little bit to enter in. However, you get one free pass, and on this occasion, this is my first time ever trying Arena mode, so this will be my free pass, but I just want to acknowledge that from the get-go here. But it is a mode in Gwent in which we will battle other players, and if we continue to win, then we can continue to play in this mode. However, if we lose 3 times, then we're out. So it's sort of like a tournament, but honestly, I've never seen anyone play Arena mode before, so I'm going in completely blind here. I'm not sure how we pick our cards. I'm assuming that we do something to draw our cards. Maybe it's some sort of draft system. I assume it's likely not that we're going to use the cards that we already have available to us. So let's give this a shot here. It'll be my little birthday present to myself. So, let's enter. We'll pay the fee, which, like I said, at least on this occasion, will be a free pass. But how exactly does this work? We choose an ability. Oh, hold on. In this mode, it's standard. We will build a deck from all available cards. There are no faction restrictions. What? We can combine factions? For this reason, it's often best to choose cards that have high value on their own and are not dependent on other cards. Oh man, that is a real game changer. I was thinking in the back of my mind, which faction might we want to choose? And I was thinking, at least for me, I'm typically most comfortable with Northern Realms, but that throws a real monkey wrench into things. I would think that means that the types of decks you're building will be entirely different from the types of decks you would otherwise use in any other game mode. So, we only have 3 choices here. We can use a Scoia'tael Precision Strike, which damages a unit by 1. We have 3 charges. After we've used all those 3 charges, we play a Broccolon Sentinel, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is a 2-power card that is a Dryad, and might have some other statistics in there as well. Might have Symbiosis. Imperial Formation is usually specific to Nilfgaard. Boost an allied unit by 4. Boost an allied unit by 2. Charge 4. Once all charges have been exhausted, move a soldier unit from your deck to the top. So one thing that I have noticed with this ability is that it works really well with one specific Nilfgaardian card, that when it's at the top of your deck, you automatically play it. So I'm doubtful that we'll be able to get that card here. That seems like we'd have to be pretty darn lucky for that to happen, so I don't think this is a good option for us. And then Lockdown, on game start, disable the enemy leader for the duration of the battle, basically make it so that your opponent doesn't have access to any leader abilities. I'm thinking that this is probably versatile enough of an option that it could be useful for us, basically regardless of what cards we have or our opponent has. So I think Lockdown is probably the way to go. And of course, normally, each ability would add a certain number of provisions to your deck. I have no idea how provision cost works in Arena mode, so this one does add the fewest number of provisions. Is that going to be a factor? We'll find out. Okay, so yes, it does seem that it's some kind of draft mode here where we'll have a choice between any of a number of cards to begin with, and then I assume we'll have several rounds of this until we ultimately build our own deck. I'm not sure if the way that it works is that if we don't take cards here, then someone else somewhere else in the world will have the option to take those cards that we leave on the table. I have seen that this guy is extremely good. Boost 1 for each special card you played this game. So, I mean, I'm thinking back to, in particular, the Magic season, in which time, presumably you were going to load up your deck with a bunch of special cards, so this guy had some absurd amount of boost by the end of the fight. Something like, 20 or so, or maybe not quite that much, but close to it. So, that does require that we build our deck that way, which might be easier said than done. I mean, it's not a huge deal for us to deliberately pick a bunch of special cards. Otherwise, Giant Boar gets boosted depending on how much damage we have dealt to either one opposing card or based on how many damage cards there are in total on the playing field. That could be worthwhile. Never seen this before. Sir Skewer 2, Intimidate 2. Remind me what Intimidate is? I never play Syndicates. Boost self by 1 or a specified amount whenever you play a crime card. So actually, because it's 2, he gets boosted by 2 whenever we play a crime card, which is basically the Syndicate-specific special cards. Tribute 3, so if we spend 3 coins, gain immunity, meaning that people won't be able to target this card. That seems like that is a little too specific, and that it is likely that we won't be able to get enough crime cards to make that pay off, because it's a lot harder to get crime cards that's a lot more specific than special cards, which are pretty general. So I think between what we've seen thus far, I'd prefer Herald Gord here. And then this guy, Purify Adjacent Units. You do have pretty high base strength here. It is the highest, 6 versus 5, 3, 4. I think I'm definitely leaning toward Herald Gord, though. And these are all epic rarity. I'm assuming that it's likely that we'll start off with some high rarity cards at the beginning. And then, yep, these are all legendaries. And then my guess is that from there, things will get more and more common. So these are the cards that we're basically going to be building our deck around. And then from there, we'll have the more minor things. So boost 3 units in your deck by 2. I've heard good things about this card. At least in certain circumstances. But I'm not necessarily sure if he's universally good. I think if you can deliberately pick out those cards that you have boosted from your deck and play them, then it's very good. But otherwise, I'm not sure how valuable that's going to be. Yennefer, damage all other units by 2, including our own. Boost all other units by 2, including our opponents. Interesting. Would mean that we'd want to be, in the case of boosting, flooding our side with a bunch of cards. In the case of damaging, playing very few but powerful cards in order to deal much more damage to our opponent than we are dealing to ourselves. That might work well on the damage side with Herald Gord if we're deliberately playing a bunch of special cards. And Bribery is a type of special. Create and play a unit from your opponent's starting deck. That does mean, I think, we have access to any card in our opponent's deck. That could be very strong. This guy is basically Geralt of Rivia, right? Destroy an enemy unit with 9 or more power. Or on range, destroy an enemy Witcher. That seems awfully tempting. I think this is the type of get out of jail free card that we're going to very much like to have. So let's take him. Okay, more epics here. Can play the highest unit from our deck. That seems like that could be very useful. It is also a special, so would contribute toward boosting up Herald Gord. I do have this card in my own deck. Transform into base copy of an enemy unit. If our opponent has something really strong, that might be good. Would have been kind of similar to that other card we saw in the previous round that we could have picked, the one that would allow us to choose any card from our opponent's starting deck. Never seen this, I don't think. Destroy the unit with the highest base power. Oh, no, I have. Okay, I've seen opponents use this. So again, that would be very helpful for, similarly to what we have with Leo, deleting our opponent's strongest card. This guy, destroy an allied unit, then spawn to... Destroy an allied unit? I don't know about that. Under some circumstances, that can be helpful, in particular if we have some monster units with Death Wish, but I feel like that's a bit of a risk I'm not sure we want to take. Let's go with Glorious Hunt here. I feel like that probably works well with Herald Gord, and also between this and Leo here, hopefully we can get rid of many of our opponent's strongest cards. War Chariots, Bleeding, move enemies to other row. Not sure how valuable that is in more general circumstances. Under specific cases, yes, probably. But I'm not sure we're going to have the types of cards to set that up or take advantage of it. Veil and Zeal. Damage an enemy unit by 3 at the start of your turn. If order is not used, boost the unit to the right by 1. I think this is a very strong card. I'd kind of like to have that. Sabrina's Inferno. This is a special. Damage each non-spectre unit by 1. If they were destroyed, repeat this ability once. Ooh. This also seems like it would be a very useful card to have when we have far fewer cards out than our opponent. Otherwise, Imperial Golem. Reveal the top unit from your opponent's deck and damage self by its power. And shuffle it back. Okay, so it starts off extremely strong. Gets weaker, depending on just how strong that card is that you draw. I think both of these are very tempting to me. This boosts our own units, whereas this damages everyone, ideally. More so our opponent than it damages us. We're doing a lot of this stuff. It makes me a little bit nervous. I feel like we're going to have a very unusual playstyle with our deck, but let's embrace it. Okay, more legendaries here. Johnny. Formation, which means if played in the melee row, she gains Zeal. Played in the ranged row, she boosts herself by 1. Give an allied unit vitality for 1 turn. 1 order and 1 armor, charge 1. but when she is boosted herself, give an allied unit vitality for 2 turns, and 1 armor instead. That doesn't seem terribly overwhelming to me. This is also a special card. We'll get 2 random gold cards from your deck, then play one and place the other on top. That sounds amazing. Setting ourselves up for using the cards that we want to use most. Oh, and this card is so good too. If your starting deck has no duplicates, send Shoop on an adventure. So that means it could lead to us drawing any of a number of these Shoop cards, all of which I think are very good. However, I don't know if we get to choose them, or if it's entirely random. Basically, they do things like damage, gaining resilience, which is always strong, destroy a random enemy, lots of things that could be very helpful for us. However, one thing that I forgot to mention previously was that there are a few Steam achievements that are tied to this game mode. Namely, I believe one is just to start one of these runs. Another one is to just finish one of these runs. I think one of them is to get 3 of the same card. And normally in a typical game mode, you would only be allowed to have 2 of a given card in your deck at any one given point in time. So I'm not sure if that is no longer a rule here in arena mode or not. So maybe that means in order to get that challenge complete, we would have to actually deliberately basically lose a card in the process. But if we want to get as many of those things done right now as possible, then that would mean that Shoop's Day Off would probably not be terribly effective for us. So as great a card as this is, I feel like I'm probably still leaning this way. As for this one, boost an allied unit by 5. And if inspired, whenever you play a Northern Realms unit, give it Zeal. I do think that this works best with what we have going on here already, where we can choose exactly what strong card we want to play. Okay, now we're getting to the lower rarities here. I would suspect that these are probably all the epics and legendaries we're going to get at this point. So, you can give poison to unit if it's an ally, gain 3 coins. Poison is extremely strong, but only if you have a significant amount of poison, because basically you need to apply poison twice to the same unit in order to delete it. So if this is our only poison unit ever, then it does precisely nothing. Spawn 2 volunteers in an allied row and boost them by 1. I kind of like this because it is a special, and again, we're trying to get as many specials as possible to boost Herald Gord. However, it covers for the weakness of specials, which would typically be that you're not going to have that many units out on the playing field, because it's a special that spawns units. So I think that is a good option for us. Slave Infantry transforms a unit into Slave Infantry, which, not convinced necessarily. Lacerate deals a bunch of damage. I think we go for Smoke Them Out. That feels like a good match for what we're doing here. And then, so Doppler, choose a unit in your hand, then boost self by the total number of units in your hand with the same primary category as that unit. Basically what that means is if we have a bunch of dwarves or a bunch of humans, when we play Doppler, you click on the humans and it boosts itself up by the number of humans you have or the number of dwarves that you have. We have so many specials, though, that I don't think that's going to work very well because we can't choose specials. This guy consumes allied units, making him more powerful in the process, but I'm not sure that's terribly useful for us because we don't yet have any cards that we really want to be deleting ourselves. So I think neither of these sound very good to me, at least for us. Destroy an artifact or damage a unit by 3. Now, there are some extremely strong artifacts out there. Do we deliberately pick up this card just in case we happen to find that someone has something like a Masquerade Ball that we need to get rid of immediately if we see it? That might not be a bad idea. Will-O-Wisp, if we can get a reliable way to create the Doom effect on an opponent, then this is another way of deleting even more people, and it is also special. So that, well, I suppose this is too. That is a little bit intriguing, but let's go for Dancing Star here. I think it's a little more versatile. Worst comes to worst, it's at least a 3 damage unit, or 3 damage special. Okay, so from here, we can boost an allied unit by 8. If there are no other units in that row, that's not a bad idea, seeing as how we don't have a lot of units right now, so chances are it's going to be fairly often that we're going to have only 1 unit in a given row. Otherwise, we can boost an allied mage by 4. We had some options to take mages, but we didn't ultimately end up doing that. We could damage an enemy unit by 4, ignoring its armor. Or we could have this guy, who spawns a copy in the other row, which it would be a way of getting significantly more units, but I think this works pretty well with what we're trying to do at the moment. We want to be mindful that we're at least giving ourselves enough units that we are capable of creating a logical deck here, and that we don't only have specials at any given point in time, in which case we might be in trouble here. Okay, so more legendary cards. Damage an enemy unit by 3. If we manage to defeat someone with that, then repeat that deploy ability and decrease the damage by 1. So, in theory, if there are a bunch of low-life enemies out there, then we could take out 3 of them. Oh god, we saw this guy earlier. And you know, we may have gotten the thing that makes that powerful, because we can look at 2 random gold cards from our deck and play one of them. So if we were to boost them using All God, then there is a bit of a synergy there. Okay, that might be worth considering. Then this, we deploy in the melee row, banish a unit from our graveyard and damage an enemy unit by its power. Yeah, I'm not sure we have enough powerful base power units to make that all that worthwhile. So I think we pass there. This guy, what do I have to say about him? In the current meta, at least from what I can tell, he is a complete pain, in that he basically allows the typical Skellige deck to play basically every card twice, at least it feels like it. So I hate whenever anyone plays this card. It feels really scummy, and so I'd rather not stoop to that level. However, it is quite good. And so I know you're going to hate me for doing this, but let's take it. Especially because we have several cards here that are really strong, but because we have so few units, I think it's going to be very useful for us to be able to get them back once we play them. Don't worry, we're not going to be doing this crazy Skellige stuff where we're going to be using a whole bunch of abilities that allow us to play every single card from our deck twice. So it's not going to be like we're creating the meta that everyone, at least from what I can tell, hates. We won't do that, don't worry. We'll have a little bit of a taste of it, but that's that. So, Wild Hunt Hound gets +1 whenever we have the highest unit on the battlefield at any given point in time. And we are capable of destroying powerful units. However, we don't have any very high base power units ourselves, other than if, say, we use Adrenaline Rush. So, I don't know about that. Spotter is actually quite good, being able to reveal a random unit for our opponent's deck and then boosting by that amount. Now, granted, I say that largely because I've been playing a lot of Power Swap recently, and this guy starts off with 5 power in that seasonal event, rather than the 1 that you see here. So maybe he's not quite as good as I'm giving him credit for. And then the Payroll Specialist, Intimidate, again, meaning we want to have crimes to boost this guy up. If we pay 2 coins, we can move a unit to the other row. I don't think we're going to have enough crimes or coins to make that worthwhile. Or we can damage a boosted enemy unit by 3. I think we do go with the Wild Hunt Hound here. I'm not blown away by any of these guys. Then on this side, we have the ability to either boost or damage. Boost an elf in our hand. I'm not sure we have any other elves at the moment, so that is looking like a strong likelihood that we ought not to take this guy. Damage an enemy unit by 2. Once this guy gets his armor taken away, damage a random enemy unit by 2. For very high base power, but spawn 2 rats in an enemy row when it gets taken out. I think that's okay. We do want to have some strong base units because, as we saw previously, we have a dominance unit. Okay, these are epic cards here. Whenever an enemy takes damage, boost self by 1. We had a lot of damage. That could be very useful. We had the option of taking some, but right now I think this might be one of our only ways. So this and this. This would be a ton, actually. So if we could reliably combine this with this, that would be fantastic. We have some ability to deliberately make that pairing, but I don't know if that's too specific of a circumstance for us to be relying on it too heavily. Here we could move any card from your deck to the top. Again, setting ourselves up a little bit. Putting the cards we want in our hand or such that they're at the top of our deck and we can have them in our hand next round. This is just solid damage and boost. Damage an enemy unit by 3 if you control that other person that we in all likelihood will not control, then damage it by 7 instead. So I think the answer to this guy is no. This is decent setup. Is it redundant with what we already have? It might be. However, maybe collectively across all those things, it gives us a lot of ability to set things up such that we can deliberately not win a round in order to make it so that we are very likely to win subsequent rounds. Don't know if that's necessarily something we want to commit ourselves to. Let's give this a shot. I'm not sure if we're going to have the consistent damage to make it work, but hopefully we do. Well, here is potentially a way to get some of that damage. Damage an enemy unit by 1 if we play this in the range row. For every spying unit adjacent to it, increase the damage by 2. Don't know that we're going to have a lot of spies, but that might still be a decent option for us. This would be a crime. Place a bounty on an enemy unit. I don't think we're going to have many units that can take advantage of bounties, so yeah, damage by 5. If we do manage to take someone out, then boost a random tree ant by 2. I don't think we're going to have any tree ants. And this is an artifact, not a special. Boost an allied unit by 3 and give it zeal. I think I'm leaning Mega Nil here. Okay, more legendaries. Illusion, oh man. It is a very good crime, I believe. You control a unit with the gang category. Blind Eyes, increase all other effects by 1. Crown Splitters, boost an allied unit with the lowest power by 4. Cut-ups, damage enemy unit with the highest power by 4. Firesworn, spawn 2 Firesworn Zealots in a random enemy for allied row. Tide Cloaks gain 4 coins. I don't think we have enough Syndicate units to take advantage of this. Seems like maybe if we had committed to the Syndicates early, that might have been a possibility for us. Spawn a bunch of Dryad Fledglings. They are 4 power units that have Harmony, which means if we have Scoia'tael units of a different base type, then they'll get boosted, but I don't think we have enough Scoia'tael to make that very useful to us. Similarly, spawn a young Dryad in the row at the start of the round. While in deck, transform. This is one of the transforming cards. So if it transforms once, then it spawns 2 young Dryads rather than just 1. And we will not have Devotion to have it transform the last time, which would mean we have 100% Scoia'tael cards. That's definitely not the case. So I think we go for Ciri here, because whenever you lose a round, return this unit from the battlefield to your hand. That is extremely powerful. Basically means you can deliberately lose and not have to worry about losing cards in the process, or at least not that card. Okay, so Tourney Joust, remove an enemy unit's shield, damage it by 4, an allied unit shield, and boost it by 4. Option between those two. Okay. Spawn a base copy of this unit in this row. That might be helpful, because we don't have a lot of units right now. Well, we've started to load up a bit more on them. We had a ton of specials here. Now we've taken a ton of units. So maybe we can go back to the specials a little bit here. Boost an allied unit by 3 and give it 2 armor. If it's a soldier, boost it by more. How many soldiers do we have right now? My guess is not very many. And by not very many, I mean precisely none. So that's probably not a good idea. Or we can give 2 armor to a unit in our hand. Let's go for the more general shield, or remove shield and damage, or give shield and boost. Okay. We can also boost with Golden Froth. We can split damage randomly, which might be good to get a little more sources of damage to help set up this guy. Otherwise, we can... we had to smoke them out. We could potentially see if we could get 3 of these, in which case maybe that challenge is within reach. Otherwise, we have another Crime, Profit, and draw a card, move a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. So swap out a card between your deck and your hand. Let's go smoke them out here. Maybe it's possible to get a 3rd one. And then we can have a Vampire, the Necarat, that does bleeding fairly consistently. Damage enemy unit by 1. Or we can make it 3 if we have some coins to spare, but we've very much been avoiding the coins. Could damage by 4, or if we have 2 damaged enemies, increase that damage up to 6. Bloody good fun. Profit 4, so we get coins. Spend all your coins and damage an enemy unit by the same amount. Again, if we add coins, then maybe, but I think this is basically a safer version. Sort of. Because at least if we do have 2 damaged units on the opposing side, then we can make this deal a little bit more damage, so that's probably better. Yeah, let's go that route, I think. Or maybe actually Nekarat. It's not as high upfront damage, but I think getting that bleeding might be a little bit more consistent from turn to turn. Okay, we're back to epic cards here. Damage an enemy unit by 1. Death blow damage adjacent enemy units by 2. You can take it out with just 1 damage, then we deal damage to neighboring units. That might not be a bad idea, but that's pretty hard to get that to work. If this guy is in our hand, trigger this unit's death blow ability even if the enemy unit survived. Oh, if a different unit is in our hand that we're probably not going to have. So in that case, I think maybe we don't have the right setup here. This guy gives us 2 coins. If he's in our graveyard, increase this card's initial profit by 2. Oh, if a different guy is in our graveyard, then increase profit by 2. Again, I think any cards that rely on us specifically having another card is very risky here. This guy, I do like. If he takes damage, he can heal himself, and he can do that basically every turn. That seems awfully nifty. We could deliberately make it so that we can play our weakest unit, which at this point in time would be something with 3, which is not bad, but given how many units we have with 3 strength right now, that means that we wouldn't be able to reliably say, this is always going to be the card that we play when we play this card. So I think, for that reason, I'm going to go with this guy, the Healy dude. Then we can purify an enemy unit. Or if we have the highest unit out there with dominance, we can purify any units. We could do ourselves if we prefer that. Oh, this is also a unit itself. It's not actually a special. I originally thought it was going to be a special. There might be something to that then. 5 power is nothing to snuff at. This guy gives us some coins. Afterward, give vitality. We pay 1 coin. Maybe. More purification. Purify an allied unit and boost it by 3. Possibly. Or shielding some of our units. I think I want to make more of a point of going back to the specials here. Because as you see, we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 cards in a row without taking any specials. So I think we probably want to get back to that at least a bit. And we have more epics here. This guy, if he gets down to 2 life, transforms into Champion of Spallblood O, which is a 12 base power unit, which would make him the strongest one that we have. Do we have a way of deliberately damaging him? Potentially, through this. But that's 1 card that is not necessarily going to make it happen in and of itself. We have other ways to damage our own units. Could with Dancing Star, actually. That is a possibility. Otherwise, that might be it. I don't think this can damage our own units. Yeah, if it's allied, then it'll boost. I doubt we can bleed ourselves. No, bleed an enemy unit. This is shield, this is purify. Yeah, so this is really tempting, because this does seem like this could be a fantastic card, but I'm not quite sure we have enough to set it up. Maybe with our remaining few cards, we could make it happen still, but let's look at our other options here. We've seen War Chariot before. This guy, trigger the profitabilities of adjacent units. Again, it seemed like we would have had to have committed to Syndicate earlier, but we did not do that. We could deliberately make it such that we could play any Bronze Nilfgaardian card, which is flexible, yes, but probably not the most powerful option we would have here. It would just give us that ability to adapt a little bit to the circumstances. Let's give this a shot. Means we're going to want to see if we can find a way to damage our own units. Damage an enemy unit by 1 for each adjacent beast. There is a card that looks like this that does damage everything out there. I think it's Forktail. For a second there, I thought it might have been that, and I would say we lucked out. But not the case this time. Boost self for each tactic in your hand. I think we do have a few. That's 1, but I'm not sure we have that many. Probably not enough for that to pay off. There's 2. At most 2. Boosting this guy up to a 6 if we have those 2 cards in our hand, which we very well may not. So that seems like maybe not the best fit. Damage enemy unit by 2. Damage 2 units by 1. This seems like a good setup for this guy, at least. Being able to reset a unit's power is also tempting. Again, it's a way to make it so that we are countering whatever setup our opponents might be using, and we have a lot of that, or at least had a lot of that at the beginning. So, and it is also special. That's actually, I think both of these are very tempting. Let's go with Spores here. We definitely make a case for the other one. And it's another one of this guy. So we could have potentially taken our other option there. I thought we had two that we were rather split between when we first saw this guy show up. Maybe there's still reason to take another. It is still a good card. Roderick Duet. Dale Zeal. Spawn a Flaming Rose Footman in this row. At the end of your turn, if order is not used, gain 1 coin. So it would be a reliable way of gaining coins in and of itself, yes, but still we've passed so many times on the Syndicate stuff, so yes, if we had made that decision earlier that that was a route we wanted to go, then we probably could have pulled it off, but I think at this point it's probably too late. Damage an enemy unit by the amount Sheldon is boosted. I don't think we have enough ways to boost this guy preemptively, because what you need to do with Sheldon here is boost him while he's still in your hand, and we might have passed on a couple of things that could have done that, but I don't think we took any. Boost a unit and give it a shield. 6 boost is a lot. Shield is also not bad. It is also special. Let's go with this. I'm not sold on that. We might have actually been best off going with another Olgierd. Terror of the Seas. Lose all armor and damage an enemy unit by that amount. Or when you play a pirate, when you play a pirate, gain 1 armor. I think we have a couple of pirates, at least. You're a pirate. You are not a pirate, you're a warrior. It's typically going to be Skellige cards, and we might actually only have 1. You are not. Yeah, only 1. So for the most part, that means it's a 5 damage unit, 5 power unit, dealing 2 damage when it uses its order ability, which is not fantastic, at least not for an epic, at least, I wouldn't think. This guy, if we play him in the range row, move a card from your deck to the top. If it's a unit, boost it by 2. So this would be a way of preemptively boosting something and also continuing to set us up for future rounds. Destroy all artifacts. We do have one way to destroy artifacts. Dancing Star. This guy, coin or damage an enemy unit by 2. If we take someone out, give adjacent allied units shields. Milton is in your hand, and I doubt we have him. Trigger this unit's death blow ability, even if the enemy unit survived. I'm pretty sure that we did see the person who would have paired with this earlier, and we said, no, there's no way we're going to find the other guy. But I think we just did. No way we could have known that in advance, of course. What I'm thinking, though, is I'm actually liking this guy. Because I think these two are similar in power. This one's a little bit more powerful. But, again, this allows us to set up in future rounds, and that is something that we've been trying to set up here. This is going to be a deck that's going to take a lot of thinking. We're going to have to plan several steps in advance, planning out which cards we want to have for this round and which cards we want to have for future rounds. Okay, so Ran Warrior, whenever a unit is destroyed during your turn, boost self by 1. I don't think we have enough ways to destroy ourselves or our opponents. Well, I suppose we could be destroying our opponents on our turn. I'm thinking of mostly how this is a monster card, so typically you'd play this with a deck that has a lot of Death Wish units, and then you destroy a bunch of your own units and boost this guy a lot. But that's not really something we're going to be doing. Maybe we have enough damage that we'll be taking out enemies altogether on our turn somewhat frequently, but I'm not sure there's enough of that. Boost adjacent units. I think we might have passed on this previously. Boost an allied unit by 1, charge 1, so you can only do that once. Gain a charge whenever you play a warrior. We have a few. 1, 2. Just 2? Okay, maybe that's not a great idea then. This guy, gain 2 armor, ranged, damage an enemy unit by 2 when we play it. That kinda seems like that might be the way to go. It's the most straightforward of all these, I think, but as we got the little prompt at the beginning, typically you want to just choose the cards that are the strongest and not worry too much about the specific circumstances, the cards that need specific circumstances to be effective. Like this guy, for example, 10 power. However, every allied turn, on turn end, move to the row with the highest unit on the battlefield, excluding self. So that means that, theoretically, this guy could even jump ship altogether, I think, to an opposing row. If our opponent has the strongest card, then he will go to that row. So that is a very high risk. Now, maybe we could do something like use a card like Leo to destroy a high power unit on our opposing side, and maybe that makes it somewhat reliable for us to keep this guy on our side. So maybe that could be a really strong card to have along with some of the other things we have here, but that just seems like a pretty huge risk without a deck that is entirely built around him. Damage enemy unit. Damage 2 enemy units by 2, actually. That could be a decent combination with this guy and other cards that we had that require that we deal damage. What? False Siri? Move an enemy unit to the other row, or boost an agent by 3. I'm not sure we have any agents. So that seems questionable. Otherwise, we can have a specific bronze monster card that we create. Again, flexibility here, but not necessarily the strongest thing outright. I think this is the safest option. So I'm definitely leaning this way. This guy is tempting, but I think we might get ourselves into trouble with it. Okay, and this is our last card here. So that means we will not manage to get that triple card challenge that we were thinking about previously. Unfortunately, this card is animated and a little bit gruesome. Boost adjacent units by 2. It is only 1 power itself, though. Transform into a Bear Abomination if it gets down to 2 HP. Starts at 4, so maybe we can make that happen, but as we said previously, we don't have a lot of ways to hurt ourselves. If an enemy unit has status, summon all copies of this unit from your deck to this row. We only have one of this card, so the strength in that would be if you have a bunch of hunting packs, you could bring them all up onto the playing field, but that's not really a factor in this case, so I think we do go for either the Svalblood Fanatic or the Field Medic. How confident are we that we can hurt ourselves, or at least have our opponent hurt us enough for this to trigger? And then the Bear Abomination is a base 6 power unit. I think this is more reliable. Because this one, again, it's circumstantial as to whether or not we'll be able to get it to achieve that additional power. Whereas this one is basically 5 power no matter what. It has 1 itself, and it boosts each adjacent unit by 2. Whereas this one is 4 and maybe as much as 6, if you're lucky. So let's go this route, I think. That means our deck is complete here. So we have up to 9 rounds. Depends how long we last. If we lose, I think it was 3 matches, then we're out. So we'll give this a shot here. This will be our first one. I assume we're going against other players who have built decks in the same way. So we'll see how this plays out here. I'm curious to see what kind of decks other people choose to create, because there are any of a number of directions you could go in, of course. And the person that we see here, the faction that we see here, not necessarily all that indicative of what we're going to see from their cards. It does say Arena Professional. I'm assuming that means that this person has done their fair share of Arena games, which is perhaps a little bit concerning. Okay, so we have this guy who, if he does get damaged, can transform into that really strong unit. We have a way of damaging him. We do. We can actually make that happen almost instantly. That sounds good. Then we can set things up a little bit here. For future rounds, I feel like this guy, we don't want to have him in the first round. We want to have him in subsequent rounds. Let's hold on to Harold Gord here. I think he is our other high power unit. That if we do play a lot of specials, will become extremely good. So we might want to save him, ideally, for round 2 or round 3 after we have played even more special cards. So we'll see what our opponent's strategy here is. They would have used Mobilization, which would mean play a copy of a card that they have on the playing field, assuming they have one in their deck. But we locked them, because we chose the lockdown ability. That's why we're technically appearing as Nilfgaard here. Oh, we're actually first. What am I saying? Let's go with... I'm a little bit skeptical as to whether we want to play this guy first. I feel like that's a bit of a risk, because our opponent might have a way to lock or something of that sort. So let's... Ooh, except we don't have many other options. If we do this, put a strong card up top. I'm not necessarily sure which one we want to have. Probably Ciri. Then we'll end our turn, because Ciri, of course, if we lose a round, we get her off of the battlefield and back into our hand. So ideally, we would have had her in the first round, I think. Okay, so this guy is actually going to damage himself, and in the process, damage us. Which is potentially a way to set up this guy here. Like I said, we could also use Dancing Star to trigger it outright. Ooh. This guy will drop down to 2, and then he will transform into the Bear Abomination. However, that still means that he won't be within range of having Sabrina Inferno take it out. So, what if we just outright got rid of him here? I feel like that might be a good way to go. Let's do that. And then we might even want to boost to keep this guy alive. He's still below 9, so if this guy has Geralt or Leo or anything like that, then they can't get rid of him outright. So it's a little bit of an aggressive way to start here. Oh, that is not a card we want to see them play at the beginning. This card boosts units in their hand by 1 at the end of each round. Or each turn, I should say. That means that the longer this card is out here, the stronger their hand is getting. So that's the card that we would have ideally been able to have some damage to remove. And we did kind of just lose our primary source of damage outside of Dancing Star plus using Sabrina's Inferno. It would take 2 turns to pull that off, which is less than ideal. Oh, we do have this in terms of being a source of damage. So maybe that's still just 2 damage. And then we don't have a great way to finish things off outside of, again, relying on Dancing Star. So, not great. Not great. Let's do it. I'm not thrilled about it. It will take a turn, because it is an order ability. So maybe our opponent plays something else instead, and we want to use that on. But the other thing we could do is we had considerably higher power than our opponent. We could have considered passing early, ending the round early, so that they can have the least amount of time to benefit from having the Hawker Smuggler. But that is no longer a huge lead that we have here, because they played a big Ice Giant on their turn. So, what can we do? We could... I think we do still want to cut this round short as much as we can. The question is mostly, can we build a little bit more of a lead before we do that? Or do we want to settle for passing now, drawing back up to 10 cards, and then have our opponent decide between going 1 card down or winning this round? I think that is the way to go. Because the longer we hold on, the more Hawker Smuggler becomes a factor. So we definitely didn't find ourselves in a good position there. We ultimately did not get the chance to use the order ability on this card here, because if we had done so, that would have meant we would have had to have played a card this turn. Then we would not have had the card advantage here, so our opponent will take round 1 from us. Oh, hold on, they're playing more cards? Uh-oh. What's the deal there? Okay. No, I think what that means is just that this person is going to immediately pass in round 2. So what we want is we want to play Ciri, which should be an option here. We should draw her immediately. Yes, because we did set that up. So, what we're going to do is we're going to play Ciri whenever we... Oh, but whenever we lose a round, not whenever a round ends. So, yikes. Okay, so Ciri, actually in that instance, is not terribly valuable to us. We could still play her in this next round. Because like I said, I anticipate that we're going to play 1 card and then be done. So, it's not looking good. Not looking good for this one. Not a huge fan of Crow's Eye. We can deal some damage here, yes. To our opponents, at least. Field Medic also may not be the best option for us. Okay, this actually, I think, was a great card for us to pick up here, wherever it just went. Here it is. Whenever an enemy takes damage, boost self by 1. Based on how that is face down, that would suggest that that is presumably a trap. I'm surprised that... Oh, okay. You did still have enough cards to play 1 until you reach that 7 marker, which is significant because once you're at 7 cards, that's the minimum amount of cards you can have while still drawing back up to 10 at the beginning of the next round. So I think that's probably the only card they will play here, meaning this card that they just played is likely to deal a fair bit of damage to whatever we play. Let's play Siri. Like I was saying, I think not as valuable to us as we would have liked for her to have been. If we had her in the first round, that would have been ideal. There's the trap triggering. So now what we have is, because we have 9 cards in our hand, that means we could theoretically play 2 more and still be allowed to get up to the maximum 10 cards in the next round. And I think we actually do want to do that. The reason there being, that means that we can get rid of any cards we don't very much want for the last round and maybe even play some specials. Boost Herald Gord here. So if we, say, just like throw a Spores, which I don't think is going to be terribly relevant to us unless our opponent has some crazy boosting in store, then you see Herald Gord now is ready to boost by 2. So if we do that one more time here, and I think we want to save Dancing Star, so maybe we go with Smoke Them Out. Play that. Now you're ready to get boosted by 3. So we are, of course, over-winning this round. I don't say over-investing because we will still draw back up to 10 cards here. So fortunately, our opponent did hand us the round 2 victory. So maybe there's still a chance. Does mean we're going to be going 10 cards against 10 cards. This will be a long round here. Oh. And swap your graveyard with your deck. I think this guy is, what, ideally a round 2 card? I've seen so many people use it, and yet I don't have it myself and haven't ever used it myself. So I guess I'm not actually familiar with the intricacies of exactly when it is best to play it, but I think this is not exactly the time when we want that to be happening. So I think we actually want to swap them out. Swap them out is probably good because that's another special to further set you up. And are there other things we can do in that regard, or other cards we're not huge fans of? Wild Hunt Hound, I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to set you up. Have a high power unit to get that dominance to take effect, and then enough turns for dominance to continue to boost it. Leo, I think, is probably a very good draw for us. So, what do we do here? I think we start off with a special that also creates units. Let's go for this, because we don't have anybody to attack or delete with Leo or anything of that sort. We don't have anyone to boost yet, so now we have some cards out. We have a little more in the way of options. Does mean that Sabrina's Inferno will, of course, damage us too, and this is definitely not the time to use it, given how it would damage us more than it damages our opponent. But maybe getting Necarat out there might be useful to get that bleeding going as soon as possible. I think that's probably the case. This card that our opponent just played, take a look here, will heal all their units in this row at the end of every turn, which is both a good thing for us and a bad thing for us. Means that as we're dealing damage, that damage is going to ultimately get mitigated or canceled out. However, it does mean that with cards like this guy here that get boosted every time someone takes damage, we can reliably deal damage without having to worry about outright destroying any opponent cards. Damage unit by 1, cooldown 1 if target has a status. Make that 2 instead. Okay, so what do we want to do here? I think we probably want to play this guy as soon as possible, because, or even this guy, because if you damage him, he's going to transform, at least eventually. Alright, you can stop doing that. If we play this guy, then the earlier he's getting boosted from people taking damage, the better. Let's try this. And of course, we are now starting to play some of our stronger cards, so we are at risk of our opponent doing something to counter them. So I'm curious what our opponent has in store for us here. Do they have any hard counters, or are they just going to focus on boosting themselves as much as possible? It does seem like, based on this card here, that they are thinking about damaging us. And Sarah would also certainly be capable of doing that. Actually, That might be, yep, enough to take somebody out. You opted to take out our unit that creates bleeding, not this guy. That unit was going to set up this guy, at least to a certain extent. That's not great that you did that. Let's see. We could potentially destroy you, actually, with Dancing Star. That would make it difficult for us to set up Vild Carl here, because we couldn't deal enough damage to make him instantly transform. So we might want to avoid that. Not entirely sure what we want to do on that front. I think, otherwise, probably playing the Noon Wraith, because otherwise people don't have a lot of things that are properly set up at the moment. We could potentially boost someone and give shield. That might even be worth doing on Dagger over here. Make sure that our opponent doesn't take him out. Damage an enemy by 2. Okay, so they have a lot of damage. Which I think, in some ways, can be a good thing if we play this guy. Because he's strong, and they don't actually want to damage him. Now, we don't have to play him in the melee row, so I don't think we should. That way we're splitting up some of our more powerful units. Actually, Noon Wraith, technically speaking, is our most powerful unit at the moment. But I think you get what I mean. Herald Gord, at least as of right now, is not yet incredibly strong, but with a Dancing Star and a Sangreal, ultimately you'll get a little bit stronger still. And potentially Sabrina's Inferno as well. Still not entirely sure when we're going to want to play this. Doesn't seem like there's an opportune time, really. So let's play this. And depending on what our opponent does, we'll have to decide, does it make sense for us to damage him ourselves, or can we rely on our opponent to do it for us? I would assume our opponent is unlikely to target him specifically. Ooh, they are transforming into one of our units. Which one will they take? They're taking the one that gets boosted whenever we take damage, and they have a lot of sources of damage, so they, in many ways, are more set up to do it than we are. We could, if this guy gets too out of hand and gets to 9 power or above, outright delete him. I think that is probably the plan. Let's not worry too much about this guy getting boosted. This guy could be done here. Now, if we were to use Sabrina's Inferno, it would destroy a unit, so it would trigger again. It's just that it would be our unit, not our opponent's. And it would further boost this guy by an insane amount. Oh, actually, I wonder what the order of operations is here, because if it damages before this guy gets boosted, then he's gone. If he gets boosted first, then he's actually going to be very high up there. Ooh. So tell you what, I think what we do is we boost him. Then we're going to use this. Damage a bunch of people. He's going to get very high in terms of his boost. And then maybe our opponent has something to delete him. Maybe our opponent doesn't. But it will also boost this guy. We can delete him. So I'm hoping that that works out for us. And that actually may not be the end of the world there. That this guy is now down to 1 HP, because that means this will repeat here. So again, this could very much backfire on us, but I think I like the way it looks now. Means these guys are going to go way up there in terms of their power. We will destroy this guy, and hope our opponent has no way to destroy this guy. Oh, except, yeah, we maybe should have transformed Build Carl first, because now we're going to find it very difficult to make that happen, seeing as how Dancing Star would outright destroy him, so we probably got our order of operations wrong here. We could just destroy one of our opponent's cards with this instead, which is likely what we'll want to do. Okay, you're spawning some adjacent units. Yes. Our opponent does definitely have more power than us right now. We will, however, of course, have the chance to destroy this guy with Leo. Do we want to do that now, or do we want to wait? Is there any reason to wait? Previously, we could have destroyed this guy, but I do think he just got healed a little bit from 3 and up to 4. That probably would have been the best unit to destroy, because he is dealing damage every turn. So instead, we could get rid of that guy. I'm not sure there's much else in the way of enemies we could outright destroy. So, yeah, unless we just get rid of you. Actually, that might be best. Because you're healing all other units in this row. And even if we're only dealing 1 damage to make this happen, it means that we're preventing these guys from healing in every turn. It's probably still worthwhile. Now, this card is going to get destroyed, which means it is going to spawn a couple of rats, which are base 1 power unit on our opponent's side. So it will make our opponent more powerful. So it's, I don't know. This one could be close. It depends what our opponent has remaining here with those 3 cards. So we're going to subtract 15. Uh-oh. You have a couple of poisons? You could be in trouble here. So I think at this stage, yes, let's delete this guy. We play you. And we do that. And that is not enough for us to take the lead here. We do have Harold Gord, who is going to be a 10 once he makes it onto the field, but you're already looking here and you see that's just barely enough for us to take a lead, and that's assuming that our opponent does not have any other powerful cards to play. They can deal damage with this guy here, so it looks like we have probably lost here. Had we been smarter with the order in which we did things here and been able to transform this guy into his base 12 power version, then that might have been enough. But even then, it would have been close. So this is definitely a learning process here. Trying to figure out, just trying to double check if we need to play this guy in a certain row. Doesn't look like we do. So, I think we're learning. This is a difficult deck to play with, but we definitely do have some synergies here. We saw that there is a good way to power that guy up there by dealing some damage. We have enough specials to make Harold Gord somewhat powerful, maybe not absurdly powerful. But he's not going to just be an automatic win-around type of card, it doesn't seem. And let's maybe try one more here. And, well, we hope that we don't lose, because 3 losses and we are out. I assume break the contract means that you end this preemptively. Let's try. Let's try to win this one. And I think we'll probably cut it off after this one, and then we'll maybe revisit this later on. If, in fact, we... Well, I suppose either way, even if we lose this one, we'll still have another shot at another round after this, but we'll see what happens here. Ciri was another misplay that I think we can learn from. We want to get her early as possible, so that if we do lose a round, we still can keep her. And I'm not immediately seeing her in our hand. Likewise, with this guy, maybe we are best off keeping him in our hand in round 1. I think Crow's Eye is one of our weaker cards. We want Ciri, ideally. This guy is best with that unit that gets powered up whenever an opponent takes damage, and we don't have that unit right now. Well, what does this do again? It's a setup card. Look at 2 random gold cards from your deck and play one of them and place the other on the top. So we could play Ciri like this. Probably what we want to do. And then could also put a card on top with this guy. Sure. So do we do that immediately? We do have the tactical advantage. We are going first. So maybe we are playing to win in that case in this round. In round 2, instead, we'll deliberately pass. I mean, that's hard to say at this stage before we have any idea what our opponent is going to do. But maybe for that reason, we play this guy here, put Ciri at the top of our deck, so we'll definitely have her for round 2. We won't immediately play her on the assumption that we will be trying to win this round. We move Ciri to the top. Let's wait to boost, because that would bump this guy all the way up to 9, which means he would theoretically be deletable by at least a couple of cards. Geralt and Leo. And we'll have to see what route our opponent is looking to take. Damage. They have elves, then they can damage more frequently. Okay. So, what else can we do? We could outright delete this card, which might not be a bad idea, because it will deal damage, and the longer it stays around, the more damage that is going to add up to be. That's tempting. We could also play Dominance here. Wild Hunt Hound would get that, because we are currently tied for the highest unit, especially if we were to use tactical advantage. That is most valuable in a long round, and this is not necessarily a round that I'm planning to be terribly long. So with that in mind, yeah, I think what we do is we destroy this card here. We end our turn, and then next time we're going to play Noon Wraith. That's going to be our highest base strength unit right now. We'll use tactical advantage on someone. Hopefully that will be enough to give us a fairly large lead. We'll pass, and then we'll put our opponent in a similar situation to what I think we did in the first game, where our opponent will have the choice to either play more cards in hopes of winning that round and go at a card disadvantage, or accept that we win round one. Okay, so that's 7 strength there, and a couple of defender units, so it's going to be basically impossible for us to attack as our Javet here. They did also, I think, theoretically get some coins, although I'm not seeing them here. So I think we can still stick with our original plan. It's not going to be quite as good as we might have been hoping for it to be right now, but as you can see here, our opponent would need to play an 8 power unit, which they may not have if they want to tie us up here, or deal a ton of damage to us. Maybe play something like, that is very strong, re-enable your leader ability. Oh, but we've disabled your leader ability, so I don't believe that's going to work. You have played a couple of your legendary cards here, so in theory, that means that you already used many of your best cards. Do we continue to play here in hopes of building a slightly larger lead? Like, do we drop the Wild Hunt Hound and then maybe we pass after that? Or are we willing to pass here, in which case our opponent in all likelihood would only need to play 1 more card in order to take this round? Destroy the unit with the highest base power. That would be one of ours, so we definitely don't want to do that. Volunteers would be, what, 6 power in total, because they're 3 apiece. This would be faster than the Wild Hunt Hound, so yeah, let's try this. Not necessarily sure that's going to be the best for us, but my hope is that we can just barely build a slightly larger lead. That can actually remove the lock on your leader ability. I did not think that was going to be possible. I thought that the lockdown was permanent. So, well, I've never seen that before, but now I guess we know. That does mean that our opponent has to play a card here. They use this guy's ability. I would think that, if I were them, I would use my leader ability right now, play 1 card, and then take this advantage into the next round, and yeah, that didn't look good. I actually didn't even catch what that does. Damage 3 enemy units by 3. So we are now tied, which means, again, our opponent would still need to play 1 more card if they wanted to win this round, but the thing is, well, they could definitely do that. I suppose that was likely still the case in the previous round, too. Definitely don't want this. Definitely don't want this. This can't do anything right now. We do still have the highest card, so this would get boosted. We could do this. We don't want it to be Siri, per se. Or we could continue to spawn more volunteers. Let's continue to go the volunteer route. We're kind of deliberately treading water here. Trying to wait this one out as long as possible. Which, actually, come to think of it, we need to win this round if we're trying to deliberately play Siri in round 2. But that might actually mean that we're willing to go at a slight card disadvantage, because we know that we will get 1 card back, even if we lose in round 2. I'm pretty sure this is an amazing card. Damage an enemy unit by 2, then something. Then play a warrior from your deck with a provision cost of 7 or less. If you destroy a unit, which you did not, play a warrior from your deck instead. Without a provision cost limit. Okay, and now you're going to use this to destroy this guy, I would think. And then that would spawn some rats on your row. So again, we are just keeping pace with one another, which is a little concerning. I mean, we should have played Wild Hunt Hound earlier if we anticipated that this round would go this long. We originally didn't play it this round because we thought that this was going to be a short one. So I think at this rate, in for a penny, in for a pound, we play him, deliberately trying to not put him on the same row as our strongest unit. I'm not necessarily sure it's going to matter too much here. Do opt to damage him, actually. I think that is technically a mistake. Definitely is. Should have gotten rid of... Or, well, now you can get rid of the Noon Ray. Spawn those rats in your row. Oh, unless you can outright get rid of that Hound, in which case we are definitely now in trouble, because we are no longer keeping pace. We are losing. Does our opponent have a Witcher we could destroy instead? I don't think any of these guys are Witchers. So, yeah, things not looking good right now. Things are not looking good, unless we actually flipped our deck with our discard pile, just based on the number of units that our opponents have destroyed. Still, probably not a great idea. I think we do need to play this card. Otherwise, we are kind of toast. And that means that we can destroy a bunch of stuff. That would at least get rid of these guys. Tell you what. This would take a smarter person than me, or at least much more time to do the math to figure out whether this benefits us or them more, because it's going to destroy this card. Or not. What? Okay. I'm not sure why it didn't destroy this card. Oh, it's non-Spectre units, and this is actually a Spectre. I was expecting it to destroy this, and then trigger again because of that. Destroy these guys. Trigger again. Destroy... might destroy these guys simultaneously. Trigger again. Destroy this guy. Destroy this guy. And then it was just going to go absolutely crazy like that. So, yeah. Fine print in that case. Came back to bite us a little bit. However, we now no longer have the strongest unit. We could, therefore, destroy something with Glorious Hunt and actually benefit from that. But at this point, I mean, we appear to have definitely lost this round. The question is, no matter what we play here, I think. The question is, do we benefit from holding on to any of these cards for round 2? We were originally thinking we were going to deliberately lose round 2. But I think at this point, we're kind of toast, no matter what. We've probably lost this game beyond repair. There's not too many ways back from this. We're going to get Ciri. Ciri's going to be, at least her primary ability is going to be pretty much useless to us. This guy, ideally, we would have held on to. And then use that attack that damages so many people all at once. These are many of our best cards here. But, like I was saying, Ciri, not terribly useful. We may still be able to pull this off in round 2 at least, but as for what that means for round 3, I'm not sure. We'll have to see what approach our opponent takes here. They are playing a unit. They don't instantly pass or anything like that. It's not like they're at a card disadvantage, so they don't really have any reason to do that. So Ciri is mostly just a 6 strength unit and not much else, because at this point, if we lose a round, we lose altogether. Herald Gord, in theory, we could play you and you would get that boost. We could flip our discard pile with our deck, and tell you what, I think what we should have done. Again, still learning how you're technically supposed to use this guy. When you have this guy, you are supposed to play all of your best cards quickly in round 1. Then you play them in round 2, get all your good cards back. That's what we should have done. So, I think what we do here is we actually use Glorious Hunt to destroy this guy. The Death Wish won't matter, because there are no enemy units for him to damage. That is another special card that we play, so it does further boost Herald Gord. Technically, I believe that was destroy, not damage, so this guy would not have gotten a boost from that. Boost an allied unit by 1 for every pirate in your hand. Okay, well, you don't have any allied units. So, I'm wondering what the best time to play this guy now is. We start to play some of our good cards and if it turns out that, well, I think we definitely played Herald Gord, actually. We have no other specials to boost him up. If he does get destroyed, or we just end this round and maybe we do prove victorious, then we can get him back using Lippy. Well, still means... Okay, so we play him. I think we actually do want this guy to get destroyed if we want him to be able to play in round 3, because otherwise the only way he's going to make it to our graveyard if he doesn't get destroyed is at the end of this round. And by the end of this round, if we hold on to Lippy, then it's round 3, and sure, we might be getting him back from our graveyard into our deck, but how are we going to draw this guy from our deck into our hand? Okay, this looks like some damage. Okay. So yes, it is. It's not enough to destroy him, but it is damage no less. Unfortunately, nothing that is 9 power or higher at the moment. So Leo is looking like he's not going to be able to do much here. And we also don't have any sources of damage, so this guy is pretty darn useless right now, other than just being 4 base power. Siri also just 6 base power. You, I mean, yes, can do something, but the timing is maybe not great. I think we play Siri here. Just going with our highest base power unit, because we're losing right now. We can't lose this round, otherwise we're done for. Does look like our opponent is eyeing Siri and maybe considering damaging her. That is also a great card. Play a card from your deck. You get to choose exactly what you want. So no need to worry about what you have in your hand and what you don't. So you pick the most optimal setup. And that's the type of thing we could use right about now when it seems like we have strong cards, yes, but this is just not the right circumstance for almost any of them. And what did you opt to do? Give an allied unit vitality. Yes, that will make your units more powerful, but you probably don't have enough time to benefit from all that vitality, because it only boosts 1 per turn, and you're only going to have a couple more turns. That being said, it's probably still enough, because at this point in time, we're pretty much exclusively playing cards based off of their base power, which is not a great thing to be doing at this stage. I suppose that is the recommendation that we got at the beginning, and maybe we went a little too far away from that. But we'll just have to see. I mean, we are barely in the lead right now. That will lock someone, but as I was saying earlier, it's not exactly like we were actually going to be able to use that ability. Oh, and that vitality. That could end up being the deal breaker here. We'll have to see. So we probably end up flipping our graveyard into our deck this time round, because that gives us 1 more turn to see if our opponent happens to play a 9 power unit, in which case Leo will bail us out, but I wouldn't exactly bet on it right now. We'll just have to see. We are exactly tied, but remember, this unit will get boosted by 1 at the end of the turn. So we either need our opponent to play something... Oh, and also our opponent has their leader ability. That pretty much guarantees that we cannot win this one. Even if our opponent plays something really strong here. Unless if you play a unit that sacrifices all other units. You know, we could destroy it. We could destroy it. So there is that. Leo will have a purpose. What we needed to happen here would have been for our opponent to destroy every other unit on the playing field in order to power this guy up, and then we would have said, well, say hello to Leo. Yes, that is still the case, but it is not enough. So unfortunately, that's 2 defeats here. And you know, we may have still tried to be a little bit too ambitious with how we set up this arena deck here. So let me know in the comments if you guys have done arena rounds before, what your strategy was, because, like I said, this is my first time ever doing it. Did we do a little bit too much of picking clever cards that just didn't have high base power? Is that really just always the way to go? I'm not sure, but let me know. And either way, I'll see you next time when, I don't know, we have one more loss, so it might be just a one game type of thing, or maybe we can go on an amazing win streak and finish off with 9.